When we first started the gym, we built it by running 6-week challenges. These were challenges where people would come in, they get 6 weeks of training, a customized nutrition plan just for them, and they had their own accountability coach. And people were getting in the best shape that they'd been in years. In fact, the average person lost about 15 pounds. And of course, at the end of the challenge, we'd invite them to stay on with us as regular members. And some of them would take us up on it. But we had a lot of people who had a ton of success that would then say, well, you know what, I want to try something else. I want to go train at this other gym over here, or I want to maybe try a completely different activity for a while, or maybe I want to try like a keto diet, something like that. And so they would go off, and many of them would then return the next time we had a challenge. And when they would come in, 9 times out of 10, they were right back where they started. They were getting that FOMO, that fear of missing out. Maybe this is a better way to train, or this is a better way to eat. And so they would want to jump into something else, because when you start to show interest, especially now with targeted ads, is all of a sudden you just get bombarded with lots of different options that you could take. And so a lot of times, rather than staying committed to one clear path or structure, we get kind of pulled left and right into these other opportunities or structures. And we think, oh, let me try this, let me try that. I'll combine the best. And instead, we just end up running in circles. And I actually think that the Jeet Kune Do world is very susceptible to this. It's not uncommon for me to talk to somebody and they'll tell me that they've been training Jeet Kune Do, and I'll ask them, oh, that's awesome. Where do you train at? Who do you train under? And they'll say, well, I've taken a few classes here and a few classes there, and I buy a lot of videos and this and that, and I've just sort of like combined things to create my own style. And 9 times out of 10, when they actually come in and train, in my mind, I can tell they're still very much beginners. And so I think it's important for people to understand that, yes, Bruce Lee was a fan of keeping yourself open to pulling and drawing from other styles and finding what works for you, and not putting blinders on and being too narrow-minded that you never branch out. But there's an equal flip side to the whole thing, where you become what my instructor referred to as a collector, where you're just collecting, you're just pulling from things without really having a solid base. And it's important to understand that Bruce Lee, when he would work with people privately, he tended to work with martial artists that were already highly skilled. They were already black belts. They were often champions. They had a lot of experience under their belts to draw from. And so when he brought Jeet Kune Do, the art of liberating yourself from these more regimented styles, there was something for them to liberate themselves from. In other words, yeah, Jeet Kune Do is the process of chipping away clay from the statue, but if you don't have a giant clay statue to chip away from, you kind of don't have anything. This also explains why a lot of people drop off shortly after starting something. In order to stay motivated, it helps to have a progressive structure built on correct principles that is leading you down that path. And if you're trying to create that structure yourself by just pulling from all these different things, then you tend to stay at this very surface level where you never quite see those fundamental principles connecting. It's a lot like trying to build a boat without any experience by just trying to learn in real time while you're on the water, versus hiring someone to take you across the ocean while teaching you how they built that boat. If you look back over the last 5 or 10 years, you're still kind of at a beginner level. What I would recommend is to commit to one discipline, one school, one instructor, one way of doing things, so that you can build depth, develop that base. By doing that, you'll start to see how the other principles connect. Bruce Lee said that when you understand the trunk, then you understand all of its branches. But you need a trunk first, and then you can start plugging these branches in and seeing where they fit, seeing where those principles, those common threads fit together. Awesome, guys. Bye, bye, bye.